Welcome, friends, to the February 2021 Extra AF. I'm Keena.
And I'm Ashley.
And this is the extra episode where we talk about what happened this month in history, what happened this month that is history, and then we read your emails. I feel like we kind of jinxed it, or I jinxed it. Next month, there won't be any disasters.
True.
Like, here we are, surviving yet another one.
Ugh, so much poorer.
Move to Texas and Louisiana, they said. It will be warm, they said.
I need to post the video I took to TikTok. I walked from our house to CVS and it was like an inch of ice on top of like 8 inches of snow to walk there. It was awful. And I literally was like, move to Louisiana, they said. It'll be fine. It'll never snow.
In a while, we've only been here, barely 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then as soon as we get here, it's like fucking ice storm for Arkansas weather. Like, what is happening?
Well, we just shelled out so much money to repair our pipes. I am hurting.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into it.
Yep.
But did anything good happen this month? Try not to be a Debbie Downer.
Silence. I don't know. I haven't seen the outside. Today was my first day like being outside really since Valentine's weekend. So
oh wow. Still the COVID, can't go anywhere, can't do anything.
Yeah.
Murray. Okay, buddy. I love you.
Bless his heart.
I love you. But you gotta go. I am busy. He's just like, I need to tell you about this dog outside.
It's okay. My dog's in the background, like running all over the place.
Only thing I can think of is that, ow! Just punch me in the face. I was trying to think today. I was like, what good has happened this month? All I could think of is like, well, I started making TikToks.
Yeah. You started making TikToks, and that one about your poor plants after the snowstorm got a couple thousand views.
I know. And everybody's just like, you dumbass, a cactus will grow back.
How are you supposed to know?
Yeah, I was like, I'm new here. Don't be mean to me. Well, do we want to just jump right into it then?
Hell yeah.
And I can talk about Texas and we can talk about freezing.
Yes.
So I think everybody is aware by now that the South was hit by the polar vortex.
Snowvid 21.
Ah, yeah, Snowvid. Apocalypse.
Snowzilla. Snowmageddon.
Most of the South, Midwest, most of the country. I saw a map that showed everything that had snow on it, and it was almost the whole country at one point.
Yeah, it was like 73%.
Absolutely wild. But I'm going to be talking about Texas just because it's the most controversial thing right now, just because of the power grid and all that shit and everything that they're doing to us in the aftermath, and just for an opportunity to once again tell Ted Cruz to choke on a bag of dicks. So pretty much all of our government right now is on my shit list, but we'll get into it. So it was a very devastating week. There's been around 70 deaths nationwide attributed to the snow, ice, and the temperatures. We still don't even know how many it's going to be because they're still working on going door to door and all that. So we don't actually have even though it was last week, we don't have a total for that. And a lot of the deaths are just due to people dying in their own homes because of how cold it got. And that is just so incredibly terrifying, for one, because your home is your safe place, and it's just it's so sad. As of yesterday, the total in Texas was 58 people have died.
Jeez, that's so sad.
There's no power still in a lot of places, so you can't get a hold of people. Like, phones have died, so they're still desperately trying to get to everybody and see if everybody's okay, and it's just And of the deaths, there was an 11-year-old boy who died in his bed, and he was in Conroe near Houston. And I just found out today he was from Honduras, and this was the first snow he ever saw in his entire life. And then he passed away, and I'm just so heartbroken because he's so young, and his whole life was ahead of him. He'd only been in
while I cry for like a million years.
I know, and they just got here 2 years ago, so they got to Texas about the same time I did, and I'm so sad.
That's so hard. Like, I had already read that story about that little boy, but like that's still so fucking sad.
It is. And there was a man in San Antonio. He was older. I didn't catch his age. Nobody said his age, but he had left early the morning, I think Monday, to go get dialysis. And then he never showed up and the weather got bad. And they found him in his car unresponsive and he had
Mhm.
hypothermia, just trying to get to his doctor's appointment. And it's just these stories are just everywhere. Some of it's just so difficult to hear because people have been cracking jokes about the South, being like, oh, you can't. And like, but this was just unprecedented. The kind of disaster that we had in the South. And people weren't being reckless. It's just we just don't have the system to survive something like this. It's
Yeah,
so
we have
heartbreaking.
zero infrastructure down here. Like, we are made for hot and humid. We don't
Yeah.
have the insulation in our homes that is needed. We don't have the pipe insulation, the
Yeah.
grid systems. They're not set up for
Mhm.
this. I mean, Louisiana struggles just as bad. Like, we still
Yeah.
don't have, like, we just got water back at work today, and like the
Mhm.
students have been having to pull water from the pool in the fitness center to flush their toilets in the dorms.
Mhm. It's been brutal and devastating. And kind of in the beginning of this cold front, I think a lot of people saw in the news the 133 car pileup in Fort Worth, Texas. A lot of places in the South, we don't have plows, especially Texas, there's no plows. They're borrowing them from Oklahoma, and we don't have salt. Like, you cannot even buy salt here. People were going to Home Depot being like, can I get something? And they're like, we don't even sell it. Why would we? It's South Texas. So they were using gravel to try to do something here in the town I'm at, but that wreck for hours, I couldn't even get to all the cars, and it was so heart-wrenching. I'm sorry, this is gonna be a sad segment.
I was gonna say, fuck, this is sad.
And then also the power outages in Texas. I haven't heard what the totals are in other states yet with the carbon monoxide poisoning, but in Texas, there's been
Ugh.
at least 300 cases of poisoning, and there have been deaths, but they haven't given totals. I know Houston has released that 2 people have at least died from the poisoning. A lot of that is also I keep hearing online people being like, how can you be so dumb to do something like that? Well, for one, when you're desperate and you're freezing, you're gonna try to heat yourself however you can. And two, if you've never had an ice storm before and you're just trying to get warmth and you get in your car, it might not cross your mind you should check the tailpipe for ice because if you've never had it before, you might not even know that. So just
Well, and people who didn't grow up around those who use generators don't typically realize that you can't use your generator in your home.
yeah.
And so that's another way that people get poisoned. I know one article of people who died, they were using their grill inside the house
Mm.
for warmth, that they were desperate. Like,
They
there was one
were, yeah.
story of a family who their 5-day-old baby died because it froze to death. Like, their 5-day-old baby, and they were literally chopped up the crib and were burning the crib trying to stay warm. It's devastating, like, the
Mhm,
things that we had to do. Like, I mean, even in Louisiana, like, the things that we had to do to stay warm and
mhm.
keep supplies going, like, it was insane.
So, just a little compassion. The first day of the storms, so I didn't have power. I had TikTok because I RIP my data plan on my phone. But, at first everybody's like, oh, support Texas and Louisiana and all and it gradually turned into how are you so fucking stupid that you guys are literally dying in your houses? Like, how are you freezing to death? Are you morons? Like, it was getting
It was
so
bad.
mean. And all I could think of is like, you don't understand what it is like to be down here right now. And for people that have never seen ice before, it was terrifying because we did not know. Like, people this week still don't have power. So this all happened last week while we're recording. And people still don't have stuff. And it's like we were told we don't know if it's going to be a day or it's going to be a month. And you can do a lot of stuff out of desperation if you want to try to keep your family warm and fed. We weren't told how bad it was going to be. I mean, if you're watching the news, it'd be like, oh, it's coming. But if you're in South Texas and it never snows, or if you're in freaking Louisiana where it doesn't snow like this, you
Yeah.
wouldn't know to stock up on canned food and stuff like that because you think, well, of course I'm going to be able to cook. I'm just going to be inside because I can't drive. So there's just a lot to this. I just a little compassion. Not that
Yeah,
I think
it was
anybody that listens to this
nasty.
is that kind of an asshole, but just in case it crossed your mind to
Pass
be
it
an
on to your
asshole.
friends too. Like,
Yes.
a little compassion goes a long way. Like, I think I was a little better prepared than my neighbors were because
Mhm.
I grew up in rural Arkansas where when we did get ice storms, we would lose power for 3 weeks. And like my dad's a little bit of a doomsday prepper. I knew to like fill the tub up with water before it started snowing. So if we lost water, which we did, we had water to cook with, we had water to flush the toilets, we had water to bathe with. I washed my hair in a pasta pot this week because I had to heat it up on the stove, like stuff like that. And I went and bought like a ton of like non-perishable goods, like packets of like mac and cheese and pasta and all that. Like I was better prepared than a lot of my neighbors, but we still got really low on our water, especially once our pipes burst and we had to completely turn off our water. But like people don't understand, like the National Guard is down here in Louisiana and Texas.
Yeah.
And like, and giving out water because we're still in such dire need. Like, yeah, a little bit of compassion. So just pass it
Yeah.
on.
And as far as like Ashley and I being from Arkansas, ice storms up there are brutal. Like they'll snap
Yeah.
power lines and you'll be out of power for weeks. So we're somewhat used to it. And then Zeke is from basically Canada, Wisconsin. So for us, you know, I'm used to ice storms. He's used to snowstorms. And this was different.
Yeah.
Being somebody that's lived through this and knows how to do it, like this was different. And it was, and I kept seeing TikToks, people being like, you don't know cold till you've been in like North Dakota. And I'm like, it's not the same because you're built for this. We're not.
Yeah. Well, and my husband used to live in Anchorage, Alaska, and he kept saying, like, I did not expect this. This is insane. This is awful.
Yeah, it was really bad. And we knew what to do. Like we knew how to make a warm room, you know,
Yeah.
ceiling windows, and we knew to run faucets, and we knew to like put food outside, but a lot of people didn't. It really sucked. That's pretty much all I can say. And here's why it sucks. In the South, houses are built to be cool, because you got to survive Satan's asshole of a summer. We have like 100% humidity and we have temperatures that are like 100 plus. So our houses are made to be cold. And if you have a house like mine, my floors are like ice
Yeah.
year round, even in the
Same.
summers. So, and it's part of the thing to cool you down. Pipes, like you mentioned earlier, are not insulated in the South. And a lot of places in Texas, I don't know about Louisiana, but our pipes are outside the
Yes.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Ours are too.
you could have been running water the whole time and they're still gonna freeze and burst because there was no way it wasn't going to. There was
Yeah.
nothing. Like our kitchen pipes, we have a faucet on the outside, and we didn't even know this until everything started freezing, but the cold water in the kitchen's attached to the outside faucet thing. So we had to start in between power outages trying to get like heat guns and hair dryers and warm everything before they burst and wrap everything on the outside. And we lucked out that ours didn't burst, but it was just, it's wild because you never think of these things until you move down here and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. We 100% didn't even think about it. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, the pipes are underground. It's no big. No, they are
Yeah,
not.
they are
100%
not.
are not.
I learned a lot about our house, and I know you
Yep.
did too. So it's been interesting. And like roads in the South, like I mentioned earlier, we don't have plows, we don't have salt, but we also don't have tires for this.
Yeah.
We all have summer tires. So even if you thought you could drive, like there's no traction on ice if you have no salt and no winter tires or chains. And the combination was just deadly. So you just couldn't get anywhere. And then so what happened with the power in Texas? I know that's been a thing that's trending on Twitter constantly, and people keep on telling me like what they've heard. My uncle posted some weird conspiracy shit on my Facebook yesterday, and I was like, you're posting that on the wrong Facebook, man. Short answer is it was a perfect storm. There was freezing, the deregulation of the energy companies here, the privatized grids, there was too much demand, little supply, and a lot of freak accidents because no matter what you do, things are going to break, and things were just breaking at a really unfortunate time here. So it was just normal maintenance stuff. But when you add that with everything else, it was just a huge catastrophe. And no, it was not green energy. No matter what Fox News tells you or whatever the Texas government is saying on Fox News,
Oh,
it was
God.
not green energy. And I'll explain why. So, Dan Woodfin is the senior ERCOT director. In a press call, he said that 45,000 megawatts of power that was offline across Texas was thermal, which includes gas, coal, and nuclear plants. So out of all that, that was 30 out of the 45,000 megawatts of power. No power was immune to this. So renewable sources accounted for about 16,000 megawatts of that power out of the 45. So small potatoes. That includes wind energy, which was responsible for less than 13%. So about 3 to 4,000 megawatts of this power that was missing.
Wow.
So the turbines could have been easily avoided if they would have bought the cold weather packages when they bought the windmills. Because if you think about it, some really cold ass places in the world have turbines and they're just fine. Like Alaska, everybody has them. But it was just because we're like, we're Texas. Why should we spend the extra money? They've never needed them before. It wasn't a big issue. And I heard by like the third day, they were all working again. They were actually overproducing at one point. So it's just wild. The outages were concentrated in Texas as the grid was forced to shed load. So it was unable to keep pace with the spike in demand. So everybody was turning on their heaters, which normally in a winter in the South, you don't use heat often, maybe like a week or so, few days here and there. But everybody in the entire state was turning it on at the same time. And at one point, they had to turn off the power to 4 million people to save the grid from just complete collapse. And they're saying now that we were seconds away for like maybe 3 months of a blackout if they hadn't have just shut it down. All 200, I almost said 2,000, all 254 Texas counties were placed under a winter advisory warning, which is rarer than rare. We're talking Gulf Coast had snow. It is wild. And typically, what would happen is a cold front hits one area of Texas. Texas is bigger than countries. It's huge. So normally they just plan for when it hits this area, the other areas are going to make up for it. But they couldn't do this time around. And then because of the icy roads and the no plows and the no salt, they couldn't get equipment to them to service them. So it was just perfect storm. And it's also not illegal or mandatory in Texas to weatherize or maintain your equipment. They feel that the incentive is profit. So they just assume that you're going to want to keep everything up to date in weatherize so that you make money. But none of that is illegal to not regulate any of this. So here's the biggie. Texas is a standalone power grid that is deregulated. So not all of Texas, if you look at the map, a little bit at the top in the panhandle and then a little bit to the west is not part of ERCOT, but almost the entirety of the state is. It's a competitive pricing market, meaning it trades on supply and demand. Companies are trying to bring the cheapest form of energy to the market, which can come at the expense of building, out of more reliable infrastructure systems. So it's definitely profit over people. They don't necessarily update because they're trying to keep it as cheap as possible. Quote, Texas has chosen to operate its power grid as an island, noted Rice University's Cohen, which means that the state can't import power from other states when it's most needed. He added that this also impacts the country in the fall and spring when Texas is overproducing power and we can't share it with anybody else. That was the other thing is, say, like when we were in Arkansas, if something happened, other states could come to our aid and give us their excess power. And then also people in a federal grid has to have a backup storage of energy, and ERCOT doesn't do that. So there's not a amount of power somewhere just waiting for an emergency.
Which is just dumb as shit.
It's so dumb. And then the severity of the storm was underestimated, especially by ERCOT. Ahead of the inclement weather, ERCOT estimated how much power it would need under various scenarios, but the reality exceeded anything, even in their most extreme forecast. Earlier, they said for 3 weeks that this was going to happen, and it's just another instance of people not listening to science. Like, it was just a bunch of people being like, this never happens, it can't happen, when the numbers were there. Like, the meteorologists, everybody was like, this is going to be really bad, and it's just a whole lot of we'll chance it.
That's ridiculous.
Matt Breitert, a portfolio manager at Ecofin, called Texas Grid a Wild West market designed based on short-run prices. If Texas had been connected to a broader grid, it might have had a more stable resource portfolio to handle this event. There's also this idea of, do they ever have something like this in the past they could have learned from and prepared from? Yes, they did. In 2011, there was a snow ice storm similar to this. It wasn't as widespread over the whole state, but it was devastating. And after that, all the experts told everybody, you have to update this. You have to have weatherized, options. It was the same thing. It froze gas wells. It affected coal plants and wind turbines, leading power outages across the state. A decade later, nothing was done. There was a couple of places. So El Paso, for example, was left without power and water in 2011. after their power station froze. So officials made several critical decisions after that storm. Like, one is that all of their power equipment can now withstand temperatures of negative 10 degrees now. So they updated that. And then the Panhandle also escaped, but they voted. There was one in 1989 too. So after that, in the 90s, they voted they didn't want to be part of ERCOT because that was about the time that they were deregulating everything. And they're like, this could be super bad for us. We don't want a part of it. So that's like Amarillo. So they opted out a long time ago. So now they share a power grid with 14 other states. So they also did very well during all this.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's actually really smart. So
Mm-hmm.
okay. Okay.
But I mean, in all fairness, they are, way up there and they're not like in the middle of the state. So,
Yeah.
places like us probably couldn't have joined that because we're
No.
South Central Texas. So, aftermath. People are still without power and water in a lot of the state. The majority of people, and I say majority, the millions of people got their power back. We got ours back Thursday of that week, but there's still hundreds of thousands of people that don't have power. Water, some people don't have water at all. People like us, we have a boil order because it's still, cracks and pressures down. Biden did declare a Texas disaster really early on. So federal funding was sent and FEMA's here. They're delivering. I saw today that San Antonio got a massive truck of water from the federal government. They brought generators and blankets. One thing I could say is that the volunteer, like the grassroots on boots on the ground movement right now is incredible to watch. So
Yes.
they're going door to door doing welfare checks. There's businesses. One of the restaurants in my town in Seguin actually like opened it up and handed out all their food that they had inside. So like their eggs, their milk, and everything because all the grocery stores were out. Everything got just ransacked. Even today when I went to HEB, there was barely anything on the shelves. Like they still can't catch up because none of the trucks could get here to restock anything until yesterday and today.
Yeah.
So it's been a wild.
Yeah. I was
And
so excited to see eggs and bread yesterday on the shelf.
yeah. We look out. One of our friends here has chickens, so she was just like, "I got you." But as far as like milk and stuff, the bread aisle they were trying to stock it, so they had to rope it off because people were trying to like dive in there and grab it. It was insane. So Biden said he is going to come to Texas, but he didn't want to go during the emergency because he didn't want to divert resources because him being president, he has to have security and stuff. So I know there were people online being like, why isn't he there? Well, he knew that the attention needed to be on Texas and not him. So I did kind of appreciate that. AOC, the queen, has raised nearly $5 million as of today for Texas relief, despite Republicans literally blaming her in the state, which is beyond me. I've been hearing and seeing people blaming her in the Green New Deal, which has not passed. So it's not what happened here. But yeah. And Beto, Lord help that man. He has just been amazing. He's been leading the boots on the ground effort. His Twitter is probably one of the best resources if you're in Texas and don't know how to get food or water or a shower, or if you want to give money and stuff. Whoever's running his Twitter, those people are posting things pretty much like every 30 minutes updates. Speaking of that, politicians, I think we all know by now that Ted Cruz fled to Mexico, blamed his kid. But then all this stuff came out, like the text message and stuff shows that it was a lie, that they were just cold. And then he left his poor little dog in the cold house. So
Poor
that
snowflake.
poor snowflake. Cornyn, who's the other senator, was completely radio silent. I didn't hear a peep out of that fucker until Merrick Garland's confirmation. He showed up to that. Nobody heard anything from him. Nobody knew where he was at. He wasn't tweeting. He wasn't offering any support. Attorney General Ken Paxton fled to Utah. That came out yesterday. So he also left the state. Abbott went
Beautiful.
on Fox News to blame windmills like some fucking Don Quixote bullshit. I don't know.
I was just about to make that reference.
I just like I didn't have power, but I'd occasionally like catch something popping up and I'd be like, that's what you're doing right now? Like that's what you chose to do with all your resources is bitch about windmills. So it warmed up on Sunday. It was a fabulous 70, but people are still trying to pick up the pieces. By Monday, Texas, including myself, were also hit with astronomical energy bills or estimates. Currently, we're dealing with that. In my case, or a lot of our cases, because of this weird market in Texas, like my energy is a distributor. They don't actually have power. So they had to buy the power. For last week, it was 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And then during the crisis, it went up to $9. And they were like, well, we had to buy it at $9. We gave it to you. You used it. We need that money back, and we're going to get it back. It's not price gouging. It's supply and demand. This is what's going to happen. So they didn't bill us. They just gave us an estimate. Like, this is how it's going to work. And they're like, but we're kind and forgiving lords. We're going to spread it out over a couple of years, so you'll barely notice it. And it's going to double our bill for 3 years. I'm still working on like how to report that, because they haven't billed us, because we could report it to the AG if they actually billed it, but they haven't done that yet. So they're being very calculated with how they're doing this. Some people did get billed. There were people that had auto pay that it took out thousands, like tens of thousands out of their account and bankrupted them. So if you're in Texas, take off your energy bills off of auto pay right now. Do it as fast as possible. And it is price gouging, and it's illegal. That is illegal in Texas. And so is, upping prices in a disaster. And this is a federal disaster, but they're just like, well, you used it. But in between power outages, of course, your house is dipping down to like 30 degrees. As soon as the power kicks on, it's going to work overtime to try to warm up. So we were just fucked. And we were talking, if we knew this was happening, we would have burned all our furniture before we turned anything on.
For real.
But we
That's
didn't
absolutely
know.
ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's like, I get what they were telling, like the email, like I understand what they're saying, but also I don't understand how they expect us to foot that bill, because it essentially breaks it up to even people like us that didn't have power. We're paying extra to pay for the people that kept their power. And I don't think that's very fair.
Yeah.
And because even if we paid our normal price, our bill would still go up, but we're like, we're cool with that. We use that power, but I don't think we should have to pay $9 a kilowatt hour. Ugh. So we're still working on that. And hopefully like the death toll and everything doesn't keep going up. I know they said that it could be a couple of weeks before we have a total, but it doesn't go up anymore. It shouldn't have been anything, but
Yeah. It's absolutely needless death.
Yeah. And it's just terrifying to think people are just freezing to death in their beds. It was scary. Do not recommend.
No.
Do not like. It was awful. Our government has been Republican, like the trifecta. Like they have all the jobs in Texas for 20 something years. So what they voted on and the things they've initiated and deregulated, it is their fault. Like they made this perfect storm. And I think that's why they're blaming green energy so much, because there's no one else to blame but themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Texas is also a very, 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 very gerrymandered state. And voter suppression is so rampant here. Because I kept hearing that too. Well, you voted for this. It's your fault. Ted Cruz only lost by 200,000 votes. That is very tight in Texas. And Texas is not a, red or blue state. It's like a lot of registered voters didn't get to vote because they couldn't get to polls, or polls were shut down. So that was the problem. So
Yeah.
I would like to think that this would kind of urge people to think more progressively, maybe in the future. Maybe we could have like a change, but people are already making excuses for everybody on all this stuff. So I don't really expect that, but I'm hoping this is a change, because the profits over people died, and that shouldn't be allowed to happen.
Yeah. No.
That's what I kept saying. Like, when accidentally went viral on Twitter for saying things about Ted Cruz, people are all like, what do you expect them to do? You're a public servant. I expect you to serve your public. That's all I want.
Put a sweatshirt on and shut up.
Yeah. It's like, fucker, I got two on. Yeah. They really thought they had something, some of those. I'm like, Although I will hand it to some people who are like, what do you want them to do? Like, change the weather? And I'm like, no, I want him to do his job. That's it. I was like, I don't even care if he sits in his goddamn office pretending to Google.
Yeah.
The bar is so low at this point. Just pretend you're working.
I just want him to stay in this fucking state. I mean,
yeah. Or even in DC. He can make phone calls from DC. I don't care which office he's in.
Yeah.
But just be somewhere. He's got connections. His wife works for fucking Goldman Sachs and stuff. Like, they know where the money's at. Like, figure out how to get water to Texas. Like, figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's fun. Or, AOC, not even from Texas, did more than our government.
Well, that's like here. I mean, you've heard of like the redneck navy in
Mhm.
Louisiana that like
Yeah.
during Hurricane Katrina, like civilians would bring their boats and rescue people from their homes. So like
Yeah.
it's become like a statewide volunteer network. I started following the like Shreveport chapter on Facebook here. Our mayor was like nowhere to be found during all of this, but like the Redneck Navy was going around and taking supplies to the local like veterans home and the old people's homes, nursing homes, that's what they're called. Um I forgot words and stuff like that because I mean the nursing homes, they were out of food, they were out of water, they didn't have power, they didn't have flowing water, they didn't have like adult diapers or wipes or anything for them. So like it wasn't until the snow started melting that they were like, "Oh yeah, we're going to bring the National Guard in to give you water." And it's like, "We've been here for a week without anything."
Yeah. It was a lot of crickets down
Yeah.
here, but we we will persevere and just fingers crossed hurricane season takes it easy this year. Just anyway, what you got?
Before I go to what I've got for what has happened in the history of February, can we just appreciate for those that are watching at home how pale I am that I actually look black and white right now? Like, I keep looking at the screen, I'm like, "I look like I'm in black and white, but I'm not."
What's the sun?
What is
What
this? Alabaster. Whatever. Okay, so February, short month, 28 days, 29 on a leap year, but we're not in a leap year. Are we in a leap year? No,
I think that was last year, wasn't it?
that was last year.
Yeah.
Yes. 28 days, short month. Lot happened. So I am going to do a rapid fire breakdown of almost every day of the month because something happened almost every day of the month in
Oh,
history.
cool.
But it's all like very short. And I just like copy pasted and did not do further research beyond what I have on this sheet of paper. So strap it.
I'm
All
strapped.
right.
You know
February
that.
1st, 1960, in Greensboro, North Carolina, 4 African American students sat down and ordered coffee at a lunch counter inside a Woolworth store. They were refused service but did not leave. Instead, they waited all day. The scene was repeated over the next few days, with protests spreading to other southern states, resulting in the eventual arrest of over 1,600 persons for participating in sit-ins. Pretty cool.
Wow. So powerful. Just like,
Right? Yes, I am like fascinated by the sit-ins. My dad knows someone who grew up in New York City when everything was still segregated, and he talked about dating a girl who is African American. She participated in one of the sit-ins in New York at the time, and it was really fascinating to hear, and I'm always like fascinated. But moving on, February 2nd, 1848, the war between the US and Mexico ended with the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. In exchange for 15 million, the US acquired the areas encompassing parts or all of present day California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and Texas. The treaty was ratified on March 10th, 1848.
oh, wow.
February 3rd, 1870, the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified, guaranteeing the right of citizens to vote regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So that's cool.
Yeah.
February 4th, 1985, 20 countries in the United Nations signed a document entitled Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment.
Wow.
February 6th.
These are all real big things.
I know, like there's so many things. Like I was like, I'm just gonna pick one or two, but then I would just kept scrolling and I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap, holy
Yeah.
crap. February 6th, 1952, King George V of England died. Upon his death, his daughter, Princess Elizabeth, became Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Her actual coronation took place on June 2nd, 1953.
Wow. Yeah, now she's longest reigning monarch ever.
Yup.
Did you see that Prince oh fuck, what's his name? Is it Albert? No, wait, what's his name? Her husband. Shit.
Charles? No.
No, the husband. Fuck, what's his name? It's oh, Fuck, what is wrong with me?
Philip.
Dion.
Yes, Philip.
Philip. Yeah,
Yes, he's
he's
in
in
the
the
hospital.
hospital.
Yes.
God. I
I'm
know
not
because people
sure
are
why. They just
given
said he's gonna be there a few more days.
today they said he had an infection.
Oh, okay.
But he's like 100, right?
Yeah,
Or is
he's
he
like
90?
real old. He's like
Yeah.
99. So next, February 8th, 1587, Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots, was beheaded at Fotheringhay, England, after 19 years as a prisoner of Queen Elizabeth I. She became entangled in the complex political events surrounding the Protestant Reformation in England and was charged with complicity in a plot to assassinate Elizabeth.
Oh man.
Oh, yeah. February 11th, 1990. In South Africa, Nelson Mandela, at age 71, was released from prison after serving 27 years of a life sentence on charges of attempting to overthrow the apartheid government. In
Wow.
April 1994, he was elected president in the first all-race elections.
That's incredible.
Also on February 11th of 1847, American inventor Thomas Edison was born in Milan, Ohio. Throughout his lifetime, he acquired over 1,200 patents, including the incandescent bulb, phonograph, and movie camera. Best known for his quote, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration."
I was about to say 99% stealing shit from things that you didn't come up with yourself.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, he's real in the
Don't Google him and an elephant unless you want to have a real bad day.
Excuse me?
Yeah, he's the one that electrocuted the elephant, isn't he?
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Why did I include him? I forgot. I hate him. I completely blocked that out. February 12th, 1999, the impeachment trial of President Bill Clinton in the U.S. Senate ended. With the whole world watching via television, senators stood up one by one during the final roll call to vote guilty or not guilty. On Article 1, charging Clinton with perjury, 55 senators, including 10 Republicans and all 45 Democrats, voted not guilty. On Article 2, charging Clinton with obstruction of justice, the Senate split evenly, 54 and 50 against the president. With the necessary two-thirds majority not having been achieved, President Clinton was thus acquitted on both charges and served out the remainder of his term of office, lasting through January 20th of 2001.
I vaguely remember that. I know I was like 15, but yeah, I
Yeah,
remember seeing that on TV and being like, whoa.
I remember watching it, but I just don't remember anything about it.
Yeah, so many blowjob jokes.
Right. Bless poor Monica Lewinsky.
God bless her. She really was the first ever cyberbullied to the point of like, she's even talked about it. Like she almost completed suicide. It was so bad.
Yeah, it was awful. And like, yeah, everything she had to endure, it was just terrible.
I
And
know.
I
And
mean,
the fact that she's turned out to be such an incredible person that's like
she's
stands up.
wonderful.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yes. So February 13th, 1945, during World War II in Europe, British and American planes began massive bombing raids on Dresden, Germany. A 4-day firestorm erupted that was visible for 200 miles and engulfed the historic old city, killing an estimated 135,000 German civilians.
Oh my gosh.
February 14th, 1929, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre occurred in Chicago as 7 members of the Bugs Moran gang were gunned down by 5 of Al Capone's mobsters posing as police.
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
Right, I had 2. I was like, oh, I'm going to do something lovey-dovey because it's Valentine. And then I was like, nope, Massacre. February 15th, 1820, Susan B. Anthony was born in Adams, Massachusetts. A pioneer in women's rights, she worked tirelessly for women's suffrage, the right to vote. And in 1872, she was arrested after voting illegally in the presidential election. She was commemorated in 1979 with the Susan B. Anthony dollar coin, thus becoming the first American woman to have her image on a U.S. coin.
Hopefully we'll have another one soon. I saw that they're working on replacing Hamilton, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think maybe.
Wait. Oh, it might be Jackson.
I think it's Jackson.
Shows how much money I have that I don't remember who's on a $10 bill. Yeah, I think it is Jackson.
I held money.
Tubman replacing Jackson on the 20. That's what it is.
Where did I get my
Jesus
Internment from?
Christ.
I don't know.
I learned something about Harriet Tubman that I am gonna make a TikTok about. So when she was 15, one of the overseers was throwing a 2-pound weight at somebody, and she got in the way to save them, and it hit her in the head,
I
and
saw
she
that.
had severe brain she had trauma, and she developed epilepsy and narcolepsy.
Yep.
So, everything that she accomplished, I mean, she had a disability, but, like, during her blackout, she would have dreams that God was talking to her and telling her to save all these people, and I started thinking, like, well, is she eligible for sainthood? But because she was enslaved and her religion was kind of a mixture of African and Protestant and Catholics and Episcopal and everything, she's not qualified because she wasn't officially Catholic because she wasn't
Yeah, which
allowed.
is ridiculous. I
Yeah,
mean, give her a sainthood.
but she was sainted through the Episcopals, and she has a feast
Yes.
day.
Awesome.
Wish I had
That's
the
great.
date. Hold on. Marie fact checked for me because she's gonna be a priest. Her feast day is July 20th.
Okay.
So that's exciting. I was like, she deserves to be a saint, especially if she was talking to God. Because to me, I'm like, that seems like how you become a saint.
Yeah,
But
it
what an
counts.
incredible story! Like to be that badass, to like
Right?
be like the first woman to like lead a regiment and to never lose a person,
Yeah,
to just be such a bomb ass human, but like also talk to God. I just thought that was super cool. So
that is awesome. So I just have a few more.
okay.
Okay, so February 19th, 1942, internment of Japanese Americans began after President Franklin Roosevelt issued an executive order requiring those living on the Pacific coast to report for relocation. Over 110,000 persons, therefore, shut down their businesses, sold off their property, quit school, and moved inland to the relocation centers. If you don't know, Arkansas had two centers. There was Rower and Jerome, I believe.
Jerome, yeah.
There is a documentary called Relocation Arkansas, which is an amazing documentary. A woman from Arkansas whose mother was the mayor, I think, of Jerome, did the documentary, and you should all watch it. It's amazing. It's very heart-wrenching.
Oh
And
yeah.
George Takei was one of the people. He and his family were, I think, at
They
Rower.
were at Rower, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little fuzzy, but yeah, like you should definitely watch it. You should definitely look into George Takei's accounts of being at Rower. Like it's
Yeah, there's
so sad,
you should be
but
able to find it on YouTube, but they rededicated Rower 20 like 2015-ish maybe?
yes.
And he did an amazing speech about it, and yeah, you should definitely check that out. I wanted to go so bad, but I couldn't get there.
Yeah.
But UCA, when I was there, you were there, they actually had an exhibit at our
Mhm.
gallery that was drawings of children while they were at Rower,
Yep.
and that was probably the most gut-wrenching thing because it was just like them wanting to play, and but all their photos were just like fences and barbed wire and just, because they're drawing what they see and that's all they
Yeah.
knew. It's so sad.
Yeah, it's awful. So, moving on from that,
Oh god.
February 20th, 1962, astronaut John Glenn became the first American launched into orbit. Traveling aboard the Friendship 7 spacecraft, wow, words, Glenn reached an altitude of 162 miles, 260 kilometers, and completed 3 orbits in a flight lasting just under 5 hours. Glenn was the third American in space, preceded by Alan Shepard and Virgil Gus Grissom, who had each completed short suborbital flights. All of them had been preceded by Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, who was the first human in space, completing 1 orbit on April 12, 1961, a feat that intensified the already ongoing space race between the Russians and Americans. Glenn's successful flight showed that Americans had caught up and was followed in September 1962 by President John F. Kennedy's open call to land an American on the moon before the decade's end. February 22nd, 1956, in Montgomery, Alabama, 80 participants in the 3-month-old bus boycott voluntarily gave themselves up for arrest after an ultimatum from white city leaders. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks were among those arrested. Later in 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court mandated desegregation of the buses, which is huge.
Yeah.
Also on February 22nd, but no year given because she's ageless, Keena's mom was born.
She was! Also in 1956.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
So February 23rd.
Sorry, Mama just gave out your age. Sorry, just really.
Hey, I was just gonna leave it. February 23rd of 1868, African-American educator and leader W.E.B. Du Bois was born in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And then to round it all off, February 28th, 1968, an absolute legend was born. My dad.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Well, the legend who birthed a legend.
Also, didn't Black History Month started out as a week.
Yes.
And then it turned into a month. But yeah, it's a good month to pick because there's just so many amazing parts of the civil rights movement that began or ended in February.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. And like, I just did like a rapid fire, but there was so much more. Like, if I had picked every single thing just on like the articles that I found, I would have had, like, I condensed it down to like 2 pages. I would have had like 6 or 7 pages.
Yeah. Busy month for being the shortest.
I know. Yeah. And I didn't even like look into leap year stuff. Like, I just left it at 28. And
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that much stuff had happened. Thank you for blowing my mind.
And I didn't want to make it all sad.
Yeah. Now emails.
Yay!
I'll do Lauren.
Woohoo!
Hello, Lauren. And the title is My Badass Grandma is Historical AF.
Ooh.
I'm excited. So my grandma, Ethel Louise Jones Scheffler, what a cool name.
I love her already. Also, I'm formerly a Jones, so we're cool.
Yes. She says she was a wasp. And no, not that kind you think, you heathens. Oh, she was a female pilot in World War II.
I'm obsessed with them.
Oh, yes. After she got bit by the flying bug, she knew she could never go back to not flying. She went to Brazil where a friend set her up on a blind date. And then it says in parentheses, clearly not murder podcast in 1940s. And she married the guy, Ira Smith Scheffler Jr., 3 weeks later. And then it says, ... in Brazil, ... times were wild. She was also the 7th woman in the world to get her helicopter ratings and one of the charter founding members of the Whirly Girls. She ended up raising her 3 daughters alone while working as a pilot, and to her dying day, she said that nothing she did was as special or important.
Oh,
wow!
I love her.
I do too. So I got a link here.
I have a new hero.
What a legend. For reals. Okay, here's her obituary. But yeah, it says in 1936, she saw an ad in the paper about sightseeing airplane rides given by the Hunter brothers. She spent $1 on that first flight and always remembered seeing the fields and the corn being detasseled from above. After a single flight, she said, I got bit by that bug. When I got down, there was no way they could keep me on the ground. So she worked several jobs to save money for flight lessons and took her first lesson on July 23rd, 1942. When the Women Air Force Service Pilots were formed a year later, she had already logged 173 flight hours. She applied and was accepted into WASP training, paid her way to Sweetwater, Texas, and arrived in Angerfield, Avenger Field in December of 1943 as a member of the WASP training class of W5. After completing 7 months of Army Air Force flight training, Ethel and 71 of her classmates graduated and earned their silver WASP wings.
Oh man, that is fascinating.
Oh, what a cool person. It says a little bit more. She would log over 500 hours in the next year. At that time, she would have flown B-13s, AT-6s, AT-10s, and UC-78s.
Oh, wow.
What? That's impressive.
That's amazing.
For, like, anybody. She worked as a flight instructor and a charter pilot at airfields in Illinois, New Jersey, and Tennessee. She was a role model for many aspiring pilots, male and female, who continue on as professional as well as recreational pilots. And then it talks about her getting married in Brazil. It was in the 50s. She became the 7th one in the world to obtain her helicopter rating. Traditional expectations restricted her ability to fly openly, but she still flew secretly like a badass she is.
Heck yes.
She wrote a piece she called Homesick Angel about feeling stranded from her passion flight. In 1960, she threw off the bonds of tradition and returned to flying full-time as a chief instructor and charter pilot while raising her 3 daughters. She also
Wow.
worked at a printing shop to support the family. Quote, she used her skill, passion, and free access to planes to teach her daughter to fly. In fact, we were not allowed to get our driver's license until we had our pilot's license.
That is amazing.
Oh my God, how cool is that? At the age of 83, with over 25,600 flight hours, she moved to Appleton, Wisconsin to be closer to her daughter. Over her times as a pilot and an adventurer, she flew to 49 states, all but Hawaii, and traveled to 7 continents.
Wow.
She died on June 5th, 2018, surrounded by family.
Oh, good. Not that she
Oh.
died, but that she had family there.
She was also an active Girl Scout leader, 4-H leader, and volunteered at the local mental health facility.
Shut up. I love
Shut the
her.
front door. I have a new idol.
I
I
like
think we all do.
100%. Like if you could like send me a picture, I'm hanging her up in my dining room.
She donated her body to the Medical College of Wisconsin to contribute to the knowledge and skills of doctors.
Oh my gosh. I love her.
Holy crap, Lauren. Thank you so much for sharing your grandma with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna go cry now.
That was amazing. Oh my gosh.
That was incredible. I want to be her when I grow up.
I don't even know what to say. Like I'm just man, that she's definitely that's the type of grandma that like I think of when I think of that quote about somebody doesn't really die until you say their name for the last time. And like I really hope that no one ever says her name for the last time.
Absolutely.
She
Cheers to
deserves
you.
monuments.
Yes.
All right, so let me see. Let me pick one. I'm gonna go with Myra Bad Date because I asked for bad dates.
Yes.
So, and I was really excited when you said that this email came in or this message came in. So, bad date. This is from Myra. Bad date. 4 hours of Tetris in silence.
Oh no.
That sounds wonderful. Okay. Hello. I am in love with your podcast and I'm still catching up, but I need to tell my bad dating story because, like, I have an entire podcast about bad dating stories. Dating apps suck at Apps Suck Pod. Shameless plug. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to be following that.
Writing that down.
Yes. It's super long. Girl, we don't care. But I'm going to tell the entire thing because the background is honestly the best part. So I'm a junior in college and I've yet to be in a relationship. Lame. I know. JK, not really. Girl, that is not lame at all.
Nope.
You do you. But it took me a while to come to terms with my sexuality. That's okay. So my first crush since my disastrous crush on a girl in freshman year of high school was last year. I fell incredibly infatuated with this guy in my friend group, and being my impatient as hell self, after a month-long Snapchat streak with him, I decided to ask him out. Can I just say I'm really glad Snapchat was not a thing when I was dating?
Right?
So glad I dodged that bullet. Of course, I couldn't ask him out like a normal person, though. I had to make this an operation. So I got with my 2 best friends and I was like, here's the deal. We all go to dinner as a group like we do every night. And since we walk back to the dorms, just me and him alone together every night, I'm going to ask him then. But instead of you guys, my 2 best friends, getting on the bus when you leave, go hide in the library. That way, after I ask him, I can fill you in and we can go get ice cream because I'm going to need ice cream. Girl, you, me, soulmates. Either celebratory ice cream or disappointed ice cream. Either way, I'll need it. Yes. I'm loving this so far. So we carried out the plan, me literally shaking as I asked him. I ended my little speech with, "But feel free to think about it and get back to me later." Are you are you and I the same person?
I was about to say that. Found your
I
soul sister.
really did I write this? Is my name Myra? Or Mira. I might be saying that wrong. If I'm saying that wrong, I'm sorry. Clearly, I didn't think things through as well as I thought because he took me up on that option and I ended up with Schrodinger's ice cream. Oh no.
Oh no. Excellent
Well,
reference though.
right? Very excellent. I love a good Schrodinger's reference. Anyway, a few hours later, he Snapchatted me and was like, "That sounds great." So I had a date. We planned it for that Sunday, an arcade date. So for the next few days, I was on top of the world. Then in the group chat, we shared people started talking about how to flirt. The joking consensus was the best way to flirt was to go up to someone and shout "flirt" in their face. Valid. So I decided that would be a cute inside joke and I Snapchatted him "flirt," hoping he'd say it back. He didn't.
Oh
So he just
no.
ignored the comment entirely. That was the first bad sign. So then the day of the date. This was over a year ago, and young, naive me didn't know how to have a conversation. I picked him up and we drove to the arcade making forced conversation. I don't know why it was so much easier over text, but things just got worse. We played Tetris in silence for 4
Oh,
hours. I
oh
I swear
no.
I've been on this date. Just feeling it. So finally, the arcade closed, and rather than let the miserable day end, I pathetically asked, "You want to go get food or something?" He was like, "No, I'm fine." Then took pity on me and was like, "Maybe a smoothie?" So we went to get smoothies. Cue another half hour of forced conversation until I dropped him off and went home. I got home and lied to myself, like, that went okay. 30 minutes later,
Oh
he was like, "Let's not do that again."
no.
It was a good call. Anyway, thanks for the amazingly fun stories you share. Millie.
Oh no.
Millie, you and I, same person.
I think so. Have to
Man,
be. There's no way.
it's kismet because that is like 100% a date I've been on. Except it was silent Chinese food and he wouldn't put down his knife. And when I asked him, "Are you going to put your knife down or are you going to stab me?" he said, "I haven't decided yet."
Oh god. Oh.
I was like, I'm going home.
And I'm out.
Yeah, and we're done here. That was majestic. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. And we will check out your podcast. And we love shameless plugs.
Yes, we're here for it.
All right. I'm going to do Max.
Yes.
Okay. So this is titled Big Nose George. Hello, love listening to your podcast. I keep hearing y'all asking for some history. I live in Rawlins, Wyoming. Short version, this cattle rustler was caught. He tried to escape from jail in our town. The townspeople formed a lynch mob and hanged him. The skin
Yikes.
was made into shoes that a governor wore for their inauguration, and his skull cap was turned into a doorstop and later returned when a professor realized what it was. It's an interesting story, maybe interesting enough to make it on your podcast. Thanks for listening. Max. I dug a little deeper because I glanced at this one. So I found a little bit more on this and holy shit. Okay. His name is George Parrott, also known as George Franson Warden, George Manus, and Big Nose George. And he was infamous for not only being hanged as an outlaw, but also for being the only man in American history who became a pair of shoes after being an outlaw. So, I mean, I guess that's something. After the skull cap was crudely sawed off, the doctors examined it and found no marked differences between his brain and a quote unquote normal one.
Okay.
Yikes. Though Dr. McGee and his assistant Heath acted with the medical ethics of the time, this was quote unquote normal at this time. Dr. Osborne's activities soon began to get very bizarre. So, Osborne first molded a death mask out of plaster of Paris. The mask was without ears because, I'm sorry for this, he struggled at the end of the rope and his ears tore off. Sorry about it. Next, moving on. Osborne removed the skin from his thighs and chest. When the doctor sent it to a tannery in Denver with a set of very strange instructions, the tannery was to use the skin, including the dead man's nipples, to make a pair of shoes and a medicine bag.
Okay, Ed Gein.
Right? Fucking nipple belt. When Dr. Osborne received his shoes, he was disappointed to find that they did not include said nipples, but proudly began to wear them anyway.
Do you? Okay,
Questions.
okay, I have questions. Was he expecting the the nipples to be like points on the ends of the toes of the shoes, or kind of like upwards, kind of like the pennies and penny loafers?
I was thinking the tip of the shoe, kind of like an elf shoe, it goes up or something.
Oh yeah,
That's
okay.
kind of what I was envisioning, but I wish I wasn't
Yeah.
envisioning anything at all.
I know. I wish I didn't have the image in my head, but now it's there, and I'm speculating.
Yeah, maybe he was the inspiration for Ed Gein. That's what
Maybe that would
counts.
make sense.
That would
Yes.
make sense. So the rest of his body was dismembered and kept in a whiskey barrel filled with salt solution for about a year. Like, this is horrific.
It's
Like,
really
I
fucking
know,
hated this guy.
yeah. Like, I'm reading a book now about books, like, bound in human skin, and instead of it being, like, weird people, it was all doctors. Doctors were just doing this shit. Like, it was nothing. I don't know. Osborne continued to dissect and experiment for a time until he finally decided to bury the rest of him in the backyard behind his office. Despite
Yikes.
the doctor's odd behavior in the desecration of George Parrott's body, he soon became a prominent in local politics. In 1892, the doctor was elected as the first Democratic governor of the state of Wyoming and was said to have worn the shoes at the inaugural ball in 1893. Which in 1892, I was trying to look this up. I'm pretty sure the Democratic Party has switched a couple of times since then, so I'm
Yep.
trying not to claim him because I know there were some major shifts in parties, but I'm just going to assume for my own well being that we do not share.
We're just gonna pretend.
He later would become the Assistant Secretary of State under President Wilson.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, the skull cap was given to a young Miss Health. Oh, Health. I think I said Heath earlier. Whoops. Who would later become the first female doctor in the state of Wyoming. So that's kind of cool. Over the years, the skull was used to be an ashtray and then a doorstop in her office.
That
Like
is
my
very Ed Gein.
that is. The incident was all but forgotten until May 11th, 1950, when construction workers excavated a new building, unearthed the whiskey barrel, and surprise, body parts.
Ugh.
Inside the barrel was human bones, including a skull with the top sawed off. In no time, as a crowd gathered to look at the grisly remains, someone remembered, oh, hey, Dr. Lillian Heath. Well, this says Heath. I copy and paste it. Anyway, one of those had kept the skull cap well into her 80s. She was still alive and was immediately contacted. When her husband brought the skull cap to the scene, it perfectly fit the skull in the barrel, and they knew it was old Big Nose George. And then they also DNA'd it, and they knew. Today, the Carbon County Museum in Rawlins, Wyoming proudly displays his death mask, his skull, and the shoes. Also on display is a watch given to the county commissioners to Rosa Rankin for having stopped Big Nose George from escaping from jail in 1881. The museum is one of the biggest attractions in the city. The shackles that were used on him during the hanging and the skull cap are on display at the Union Pacific Museum in Omaha, Nebraska. To this day, the medicine bag made out of the tan skin has never been found.
That's probably
Yikes.
in someone's attic somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. But like human skin that it's tanned, unless you know what you're looking for, it looks very similar to animals.
Yeah.
It's not like giant human pores or anything. So like somebody could probably have that and not realize that they have a human.
Gross.
Yikes. 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 Yikes.
Big yikes.
Yikes
Big
on
yikes.
bikes. Oh, Lord.
Yikes hard lemonade. Well, alrighty then. Let me pick one. Let's go with Andrea. When my girlfriend passed, we all knew my younger. Nope, that's grandfather, not girlfriend. I'm sorry. When my grandfather passed, we all knew my younger cousin would receive his pocket watch. The watch was nowhere to be found. My grandma and my grandpa were best friends with another couple for their whole lives. After grandpa passed, said couple still took care of my grandma for 15 to 20 years. Then the wife of the other couple passed. That left my grandma and my uncle grandpa. They still went and did everything together, gambling, Europe, Mexico, etc. We're going to say Uncle GP because that's what the initials say, and it's weird saying Uncle Grandpa. Uncle GP even remodeled my grandma's kitchen, top to bottom, new cabinets, etc. Uncle GP had a beautiful elk tooth ring that he wore every day. Then 5 to 10 years later, when Uncle GP passed, all of his jewelry was on the nightstand next to him except the ring. No one can find it to this day. 2 weeks after his passing, my grandma was in her kitchen making tea, reached for her favorite cup, and next to the cup, something was sticking out, so she tugged on it, and it was the original leather strap attached to my grandfather's pocket watch.
Oh, whoa.
Dude, that's kind of cool though.
Yeah. Oh, I love signs like that.
Right? That's
Aw,
fascinating.
that's so heartwarming.
There's like so much stuff of my grandma's that I wish I could have gotten when she died that like her husband kept from us. So like I love when people get things passed
Yeah.
down.
All right, I'm gonna do a super short but good one. All right. So Short But Cool by Kayla.
Yes.
My great, maybe a few more greats, not 100% sure. Grandpa on my grandma's side came to Canada because he tried to assassinate the Tsar of Russia and failed. So he was smuggled to Canada in a coffin, and that's it. Kayla, I need so much more information.
I have so many questions.
Which Tsar?
Yes.
Like the last Tsar of Russia? I mean, that's like
The Tsar of Russia.
Like what? Can you imagine getting smuggled into another country in a coffin? Like, how badass.
Were there air holes in the coffin?
Oh, I hope so. Well, I mean, the family line continued, so I'm assuming he survived.
Well, but I mean, like, was there like an oxygen tank in the coffin, or like air
Oh.
holes, or like were there like periodic stops where he could like open the coffin to get more air?
I wonder if I can Google this. Escape. Canada. Surprisingly, that did not work. Like assassination attempt on Tsar. Well, I mean, there were so many assassination attempts.
Well, ma'am, sir, or they be, please ask all the questions and get back to us.
Yes, please, and thank you.
Please and thanks. All right, let me open. I will also do a short one. I will do hope.
Okay.
I have hope. Okay, hope. I already love this because it just starts with y'all in all caps.
Yay.
How I enter rooms. Y'all. My grandma's father, my great-grandfather, was a butcher in the 40s. He ran the front of the store and was a butcher for as long as my grandma can remember. Who owned the butcher shop, you asked?
Oh, no.
Wow, that's a name I don't know how to say. Joe Bonanno. He was the head of the Bonanno crime family in New York.
Oh.
Oh, they were a huge mafia family back in the day.
Shit.
My grandma remembers Mr. Bananas, what she called him, coming to the house at the end of every week to collect the butcher shop's weekly earnings from my great-grandfather. My grandma had no idea that Mr. Bananas was a crime boss till way later in life. We still don't know why my great-grandfather worked there or if he was some part of the criminal activity. I love this.
Grandma's got secrets.
Grandma's got secrets. I came from farmers. Why couldn't my family be in the mafia?
Oh, I just Googled it. The Banana crime family is one of 5 families that controlled organized crime in America within the nationwide phenomenon known as the mafia.
What? That's awesome. I mean,
What?
like I'm sure like the mafia is probably bad and all that, but like it's so cool. I'm fascinated. I recently found out one of my students was doing a research project. That's a word. Research project at work about the mafia's involvement in the building of the casinos in Shreveport.
Oh, cool.
And like some part of like Baton Rouge. I was fascinated. I had no idea that this was a thing. I'm going to do more research on it, and I will probably end up talking about it here on this podcast at some point. But it blew my mind. And like I brought it up to one of my student workers from Baton Rouge, and she was like, "Oh yeah, so and so family. They're totally like mob." And I was like, "Excuse me? What?"
What?
Yeah, it's a whole thing apparently.
Oh, we could do like a bonus episode just on that.
Yes, that would be cool. Yeah, I'm gonna ask some more questions. I just like I was a little afraid to ask questions.
Oh my God. In the 1960s, the family went into civil war and it was called the banana split by the media.
Shut the front door. Oh my God. I'm sure people died, but like
Oh yeah, sorry about the death, but man, that's a good name.
that is a good name. I really, like I hate the media sometimes, but like I really appreciate the media sometimes.
Sometimes. Wow, that's like a full ass mob family. That's intense.
Awesome.
Man. Where you at, grandparents?
Right? I mean, like, my family's got some good stories from like being farmers, but like they're not crime families.
It's true.
I've been like fascinated by mobsters and gangsters and everything ever since. Like I kind of was before from like growing up in Arkansas, so close to hot springs, but
oh yeah, you were like right next to gangster capital of the world.
yeah, like eating ice cream on downtown Hot Springs next to the Al Capone statue and like all that stuff.
Yeah. Syphilis tour.
But yeah, like those stories were great. Like this was a really good batch of stories.
It was. If you guys want to send one in, a story in for March, that's historicallyupon@gmail.com. Wow.
Any St. Patrick's Day stories? I don't know.
Ooh.
I don't know. I just like
Irish stories.
Irish stories. I'm still reeling that my ancestry DNA says I'm not as Irish as I was led to believe my entire life.
Same. I'm way more English. I thought I was more Irish.
I am more Scottish and Welsh than and English than anything.
Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next month.
Yes.
Okay, bye.
Bye.